That will be. Thank you very much. So the governors are in charge of reopening, but that doesn't mean the states are on their own. The governors are on their own. We need federal help. We need federal assistance. Of legislation in Washington, it has to be a smart piece of legislation this time. What does that mean? No handouts to greedy corporations, no political pork, and no partisanship. You can't. Sometimes there has to be a time in history when the federal government is willing to stop playing partisan politics. And if it's not through this experience, through this crisis, it will never be. That's the first definition of smart for the federal government. The bill has to fund state and local governments. It has to fund working families. It has to fund state testing and tracing. Everybody talks about testing and tracing. It's up to testing and tracing. It is. No one has done it before. No state has this testing capacity. No state has this tracing capacity. We have to build it. We can do it, but it's a heck of a logistical endeavor, and we need funding to do it. And we need a real economic stimulus. This economy has been damaged through no fault of anyone, through an act of God with this COVID virus. But to get this economy back up and running, we're going to need an intelligent stimulus bill from Washington. When I say no pork barrel, what does that mean? When they pass a piece of legislation in Washington, every senator sees it as their opportunity to bring home bacon to their state. This is supposed to be about the COVID virus and repairing damage from the COVID virus. Keep it about the COVID virus. Last bill, when they did it, they were talking about providing money to states that didn't really have a major COVID problem, so how would the states spend the money? They were talking about building a new state capital in some states because they didn't have enough COVID cases to justify the federal allocation, so they were looking for ways to spend the money. How ludicrous is that, right? This is somebody's money. This is a taxpayer's money. They worked hard. They're willing to help solve the problem of COVID, but keep it about the COVID virus. Second, I understand businesses need to recover. This doesn't have to be a giveaway to the rich millionaires who are doing just fine anyway. And it doesn't have to be a giveaway to big business. It shouldn't be that another episode in history where somehow the rich figure out a way to get more assistance, when it is supposed to be about helping average Americans. And that's the people who really need help here, are the working families, the families that go paycheck to paycheck. They're the ones who are struggling. And the essential workers who have been so great for so long, police officers, firefighters, nurses, school teachers, the people who literally need food. I mean, I have people literally saying, I need food to feed my family. We have unprecedented demand at food banks. Those are the people who really need help. And those are the people who are state government funds. New York State, we know what happened to our economy, what our budget looks like. $61 billion in support. Who does the state fund? The state funds schools, local governments, and hospitals. You really want New York State to turn around and have to cut schools and cut local governments? You know who local governments are? That's police, firefighters. You want me to cut hospitals? Hospitals are the nurses and the doctors who just got us through this, and everyone celebrates as heroes. If you, that's who you are in terms of finances. Now, this is not a red issue, blue issue. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but this is not about politics. I have Democrats, I have Republicans in my state, I have independents, I have short people, I have tall people. New York, we have everything. If you're going to be an effective statewide leader, forget red and blue. It does not work. And every state, red states, blue states, they all need funding. You put the governors in charge. The states are heading the reopening. They need funds to do it. There's an organization called the National Governors Association, NGA, Democratic and Republican governors. It's headed by a Republican governor, Governor Hogan. I'm the vice chairman. I'm a Democrat. We're doing a joint statement today saying states need funding, and not pork barrel funding, and not funding that flows through the states but gets to their special interest. That's not what we want. We want funding to allow us to do our job. Democrats and Republicans working together are going to make this statement, and Washington should listen. The federal bill should also be responsive to working families. What are the problems that working families are facing? They come to me with, I pay my mortgage. That once this forbearance period ends, the bank is going to send me 3 months worth of mortgage payments. I'm not going to be able to pay it. I'm afraid that once this forbearance period ends, I'm going to get a bill for 3 months of back rent, and I can't pay it, and I'm going to be evicted. That's what real families are talking about now. They're afraid that they're not going to get their job back. The funeral costs for families, funeral costs, are devastating. That's reality for working families. And you have homeowners in this state, and many of the states affected by COVID, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, Michigan, same states that have the COVID problem, that just have an additional tax from Washington when they repealed what's called SALT, state and local tax deduction. It was a theft by Washington to increase taxes on certain states. New York is one of them, Massachusetts is one, California is one, and it hurt homeowners because you can't deduct your state and local taxes anymore. It was punitive, it was political, it was wrong. You want to help taxpayers, you want to help homeowners, you want to help the places that were hit by COVID, repeal SALT. And that's what should be done in this bill. And you also have to fund state testing and tracing. We can put together the operation. It's not going to be easy. It's going to entail thousands of people in this state to test and trace. But we need funding from Washington to make that happen. And if you want to be creative and aggressive and smart, which is what we need more than ever, the bill shouldn't just reopen America. Now is a chance to actually reimagine America, okay? You need to stimulate the economy. You need to create jobs. You need to get people back to work. Now is the time to invest in building and rebuilding. Invest in public infrastructure. Build airports, bridges, mass transit. Build a public health infrastructure so we can handle a situation like this next time. The investment in public infrastructure is long overdue. They've talked about this for years. There are dozens and dozens of reports that will talk about the bad shape of our roads and our bridges and how bad our airports are compared to international airports, and our haven't built a new airport in the country in 5 years. Well, building new airports, now is our time to do it. Every president, Democrats, Republicans, they have all said the same thing. Our public infrastructure is crumbling. We need to create jobs. We should invest in public infrastructure. Now is the time to do it. And if not now, when? If you can't agree on a stimulus for the economy to rebuild this country today, when are you ever going to do it? And last point on this, no bailout, boondoggles. Do not betray the American people again. Why do I say again? Because I went through the 2008 bailout, which was the bailout for the banks after the mortgage crisis. I went through that, and they bailed out the banks. And you know what the banks did? They gave it to their employees, and they got rich. And you know who paid the bill? The American taxpayer paid the bill, and the homeowner paid the bill when the equity in their home disappeared overnight. And everybody said, oh, we can't let the banks fail. We can't let the banks fail. So the taxpayers had to bail out the banks. And the banks turned around and gave bonuses to their executives. I know, because I was the Attorney General of New York at the time. I had to try to clean up the mess. I had to go after the banks for the bailout that Washington, the same executives who had created the mortgage scam in the first place. Is going to be these corporations are going to use this pandemic to lay off workers. That is what they're going to do. They're already saying it. They do these analyst calls where they tell the analysts why their stock value is going to go up. And what they're saying is, we're not going to rehire the same amount of workers. We're going to rehire fewer workers. Our profit margin goes up. Our dividend goes up. Our stock value goes up. Yeah, except the American workers are left on the beach. That's what they are going to do. Mark my words today. And I want to propose a law that's very simple. Americans first. Americans first. Not America first. Americans first. Protect the worker. Corporation wants a bailout. Corporation wants money. Fine. But if you do not rehire the same number of employees, give the money back. If you do not rehire the same number of employees, but undeniable. I've spoken to a number of members of the congressional delegation for New York. They're going to propose the Americans First law, no bailout boondoggles. And I'm excited about that. I've also spoken to the congressional delegation about what I just talked to you about, what we need in this bill, what the state and local governments need, what working families need. And I believe our delegation actually has an opportunity to lead the way. So it's not just New York that's tough, smart, united, disciplined, and loving, but we have a federal government that gives us a United States of America that is tough, smart, united, disciplined, and loving. Let me leave you with one point of personal opinion. Yesterday, personal opinion, so it's worth what you pay for it, and since you're not paying for it, easy. Yesterday, I went for a walk with my daughter. Had to take the dog for a walk. Even the dog is getting a little out of sorts. I think he has COVID virus himself, the dog. So we take the dog, which is very smart. One fellow says to me, I wear the gloves because when I wear gloves, I don't touch my face as much. So it's a pleasant day, going for a pleasant walk. We come across one fellow who does not wear a mask. Wearing masks. And we were in a little bit of a disagreement, and the conversation got a little tense, so I stopped the conversation because otherwise I'd get a lecture from my 22-year-old Michaela. I don't lecture Michaela. Michaela does lecture. So I let it alone. We finished the walk, but I did want to make a point to that gentleman that I didn't get to make, but it's a sort of a universal point. People send me masks now, and some really beautiful masks. Some are personalized. This one says Governor Cuomo, it was made for me. Some say New York Tough. beautiful colors. I have masks sent to me from sports teams. I have Buffalo Bills mask. But any mask, even if it says nothing, it does say something. It doesn't have words on it, but it makes a statement. When you wear a mask, you say, I respect you. That's what the mask says to everyone you walk past. I respect you. I respect you. I respect your health. I respect your privacy. I respect your space. I respect you. I can do anything I want with myself. This is America. But I respect you. And out of respect for you, I wear this mask. This mask says, I respect the nurses and the doctors who killed themselves through this virus to save other people. And I respect the nurses and the doctors. So I'm not going to infect anyone or allow infection. As I respect the essential workers who get up every day and drive the bus or drive the train or deliver the food or keep the lights on so that I can stay home and I can stay safe. It says, I respect others and I respect you. And that is a statement that we should all be willing to make any day, but especially in the middle of this. Yes, I want individuals to be informed so they make the right decision, but it's about us at the end of the day, right? It's a mindset that says it's not about me, it's about we. And we have reciprocal responsibilities and a collective and a mutuality that says, I'm going to respect you and help you, and you're going to help me and respect me. That's how you battle community spread, with community unity. That's what the mask says. Thank you. Questions?
Governor, you mentioned that 15 for the phase one. Any kind of direction on the criteria needed to move forward with phase two, or any kind of timeline as to entering new phases?
It's always the same. You start reopening that valve. I hate to keep coming back to the valve, but I'm like a visual person. Start reopening the valve. That's phase one. Watch those gauges. Watch those gauges. Those gauges stay down, open the valve more. It's a calibration.
When you talk about closing the valve, say we make it to phase two and we start to see infection rates go up again. Do you turn it back to phase one, or do you go back all the way and close everything?
Well, if you're calibrating the reopening and you're watching the gauges carefully and you're diligent, and this is a responsibility for the governments in the region, and people wear masks, and you're watching what they're doing, you should never get to a place where those needles go into the red. Closing means you reopen too fast, right? That's what others have done, which turned out to be a mistake, because last thing you want to do is open to close, then to have to calibrate the reopening on the second time. So just calibrate intelligently the reopening. Hopefully you never close again.
One major southern tier institution that has been struggling is Maine's, which issued a warn notice recently. What can the state do to help Maine's, which is a major employer in the area?
We'll work with any employer on how to adopt stay away from gatherings, no cafeteria, no larger meetings. But we'll work with employers and keeping jobs and creating jobs. So anything we can do, we will do.
Thanks. Phase, we're getting reports about a gym in the Albany area possibly reopening without the proper precautions in place.
Yeah, that's going to be up to the local health department, et cetera, to enforce. Every county has a health department, cities have health departments. So they'll have to enforce those rules, both who should be open, who should not be opened, as well as those who opened, are they in compliance with the opening? That is going to have to be done under law. But yes, that's the law. So they just have to enforce the law.
Thank you. Is New York setting up a system in possibility of a second wave?
We live in fear of a second wave. You see these lines? These are from two sources. First, my daughters. Second, the fear of the COVID second wave. Look, we've heard people say there could be a second wave. What does that mean? I'm not even sure. One theory is the virus mutates and it comes back as a different virus. That's one theory of a second wave. They also talk about a second wave in you made a mistake on reopening, you didn't have the control that you thought you had, and the virus rears its ugly head again, right? Wuhan, China, now has a new cluster of cases, right? Is that a second wave, or is that just the first wave comes back? But yes, the mutation of the virus, that's beyond my pay scale, right? But that is a possibility. But just think of it as a possibility of a second wave because you reopen too quickly. Here's its head. That's Wuhan. Wuhan also, we keep talking about government. This is not a government control issue. It doesn't really matter what laws we put out because government can't enforce any of these laws, right? We have a regulation. You must wear a mask. How do I make 19 million people wear a mask? I can't. I couldn't make that one fella who I ran into wear a mask, right? Plus, I didn't want to have the conversation with my daughter. I didn't want to get stressful situation. But it's up to people. It's up to people. I believe if I give them the information and the facts. So we're going to reopen. Yes. It's a process and the response people. If socially nurses and emergency room workers is lower than the infection rate among the general population. How can that possibly be? Of emergency, even who's COVID positive, puts them on a stretcher, brings them into an ambulance, goes into a hospital, they treat the person, doing IVs, they're dressing the person, their infection rate is low? Yes. It works. It works. What do you think? A nurse or a doctor, they have super fancy space suits? They don't. They're wearing surgical masks, N95 masks. Many wear a face shield in front, and a gown. And a gown is also made of this. So the precautions work. If it works in an emergency room, it's going to work for you. So if people follow the precautions, yes, you will see a reopening, and you
monitoring the metrics to determine when you can basically talk to maybe 14 days between phases.
Where if you have an infection outbreak, you will know it in 14 days, right? It's not like you get infected today and tomorrow we know. You get infected today, the virus may take a few days in your system before it starts to really act, 2, 3, 4 days. A couple of days you think you're just something funny, you didn't sleep well. So 14 days, you'll know because you got infected, the virus manifested itself. If you get seriously ill, you wind up in a hospital. That takes about 14 days. But you watch it all along. And if those rates are staying low, could you accelerate the 14 days? Theoretically, yes. Right? If your test is moving, you're not getting more positives, negatives, or anything. Move if you're going to have a problem. Your testing had to start to move, right? Something had to move. If nothing is moving, then you could say, we're in good shape, let's accelerate.
Governor, as far as nursing homes and long-term care facilities, you said all employees need to be tested twice a week. Just for Broome County, to give an example for numbers, there are 2,000 employees in this county that would fall under that. So that's 4,000 tests. Right now, the county receives 1,600 tests a week from your office. Where is the difference in testing going to be made up for, and where should they expect those tests to come from?
Yeah, look, these days you give, whatever you do, people complain. Nursing homes are obviously a top priority. We put a lot of precautions on nursing homes, everything that we feel comfortable. I still don't. We're now at a point where we have more testing capacity. We do. And I think we should prioritize nursing homes, and that tests for this. Not a common as homes are saying it's unnecessary and it's a burden. I understand that it is burdensome, really burdensome. You know, you take a test, so you get tested on Monday, you didn't have the virus on Monday. Okay, but you could get it Tuesday, and you could spread it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get the next test on Monday per week. But we'll work
a plan to the state health department by Wednesday, so they have until Wednesday to turn in a plan, and then the state health department is going to evaluate them on an individual basis. These that have a difficult time, we're going to help them reach that goal, because as the governor said, this is priority one. Across the
tests in pharmacies, I think it's extremely important. I know I'm dean of this pharmacy school, but still, I think that's very important. Would you consider an executive order so pharmacists can deliver all CDC vaccinations soon, so that when a COVID-19 vaccination comes out, they can be delivered in pharmacies?
Yeah, it's a good question. And in truth, I don't know enough about the specific on vaccines to give you an answer, but I can tell you this. We have about 5,000 pharmacies in this state, and in this new world that we're all dealing. How do you get vaccines to people? How do you... If you put both of them together, you have about 500 locations, but you can't do 19 million people from 500 locations. Pharmacies brought 5,000 new outlets to the state. So it makes a tremendous difference, and I think we learned that, and going
To refuse the test.
Oh, that's a problem. If the nursing home agrees and the local government agrees, and we do have the tests, and the nursing home staff person just doesn't want to take the test, even though it's available, I have to check with the LORC in a nursing home either. And if the test is available, and you can take the test, we let you work in a nursing home and possibly